Did the US just push China too far? With new tariffs, economic retaliation, and a looming supply chain crisis, the world's two largest economies are locked in a battle that could send shockwaves across the globe. Inflation is rising, businesses are struggling, and everyday people are starting to feel the pinch. But is this all part of a bigger plan, or is the US about to pay the ultimate price for reigniting the trade war? Since taking office in January 2025, President Donald Trump has once again launched an aggressive trade policy, imposing new tariffs on China in an effort to address trade imbalances and protect American industries. But just like in his first term, China is not backing down. The retaliatory measures from Beijing are swift and strategic, targeting key sectors of the US economy and leaving businesses scrambling to adapt. On February 1, 2025, Trump signed Executive Order imposing a 10% tariff on all Chinese imports. He framed it as a necessary move to reduce America's dependence on Chinese goods and bring jobs back home. But the response from Beijing was immediate and severe. On February 10, China imposed 15% tariffs on US coal and liquefied natural gas, 10% on oil and agricultural machinery. The trade battle was back on, and this time, it was escalating faster than ever before. March 3, 2025, marked another major turning point. Trump raised tariffs on all Chinese goods from 10% to 20%, doubling down on his strategy to pressure Beijing into trade concessions. But instead of backing down, China responded with even harsher measures. New tariffs on American exports hit chicken, wheat, corn, cotton, sorghum, soybeans, pork, beef, aquatic products, fruits, vegetables, and dairy products, a direct attack on American farmers, one of Trump's most crucial political constituencies. But tariffs were just the beginning. In an even more aggressive move, China's Ministry of Commerce blacklisted 10 major US firms, adding them to the unreliable entity list. This move imposed restrictions on trade and investment for companies heavily dependent on the Chinese market. Some of these firms included defense contractors and technology companies, crucial to America's economic and military standing. The pressure on Washington was intensifying. Then came the nuclear option. Back in December 2024, China issued notice imposing strict export controls on critical minerals that the US desperately needs for high-tech industries. This included gallium, germanium, antimony, superhard materials like synthetic diamonds, and, most importantly, graphite. These materials are essential for semiconductors, electric vehicles, and even advanced military equipment. China controls over 98% of the world's gallium supply, dominates germanium and antimony production, and supplies 77% of the world's graphite. By cutting off access to these materials, China effectively choked the US supply chain, making it significantly harder for American companies to produce key technologies. Without these materials, industries ranging from consumer electronics to defense are facing a serious crisis. The United States has limited options: either scramble to find new suppliers, which could take years, or increase domestic production at a significantly higher cost. While all of this is happening, the global economy is feeling the ripple effects. Inflation is on the rise as the cost of goods skyrockets. Everything from smartphones to electric cars, groceries to home appliances, is becoming more expensive. Companies that rely on Chinese imports now have to pay extra due to tariffs, and guess who ends up absorbing those costs? The American consumer. The last time Trump imposed tariffs on China, US consumers and businesses lost $51 billion due to increased costs. According to economic studies, tariffs on China primarily hurt American importers and consumers, not Chinese manufacturers. And it's not just higher prices, job losses are another major consequence. The 2018 trade war resulted in the loss of 245,000 American jobs. Many manufacturers, retailers, and small businesses couldn't keep up with the increased costs. This time, analysts fear the consequences could be even worse. The US is still recovering from pandemic-induced supply chain disruptions, inflationary pressures, and global economic instability. Another wave of tariffs could send shockwaves through the job market, causing layoffs in key industries. Meanwhile, China is strengthening its economy despite the trade war. The government has set an ambitious 5% GDP growth target for 2025, even in the face of trade tensions. To counteract the effects of US tariffs, China is ramping up domestic consumption, increasing its budget deficit, and issuing special treasury bonds to stimulate economic growth. While the US is struggling with inflation and rising costs, China is implementing long-term strategies to stabilize its economy and reduce dependence on American trade. And here's the bigger problem: while Trump's tariffs were intended to weaken China, they may actually be pushing Beijing to become more self-sufficient. China is pouring billions into developing its own semiconductor industry, artificial intelligence, and high-tech manufacturing, aiming to cut reliance on Western technology entirely. The more the US pressures China with trade restrictions, the faster China adapts and builds alternative supply chains. At the same time, China is expanding its influence globally, strengthening trade ties with the European Union, Latin America, Africa, and Southeast Asia. While US-China relations deteriorate, Beijing is securing new markets and forming economic alliances that could reshape global trade for decades to come. Trump has hinted that he's not stopping with China. His administration has already threatened tariffs on Mexico, Canada, and the European Union, putting US allies on edge. The question is, will this aggressive approach protect American jobs? Or will it backfire, isolating the US economy even further? Another major concern is the potential for financial market volatility. The stock market reacts sharply to trade disputes, and investors are already nervous about the impact of tariffs on corporate earnings. The last trade war led to market swings and increased uncertainty, and history could repeat itself. China has also increased its defense budget by 7.2%, signaling a shift toward a more militarized stance. Trade wars don't always remain economic conflicts. Could this escalation lead to something even more serious in the future? With tensions rising, both economically and geopolitically, we have to ask, who really wins in this trade war? Will American businesses and consumers suffer the most, or will Trump's hardline approach force China to make trade concessions? And if China continues to retaliate, could this trigger an even bigger economic crisis? One thing is clear: the global economy is at a turning point. As the US and China battle for dominance, the effects will be felt worldwide. Higher prices, disrupted supply chains, job losses, and shifting trade alliances are all unfolding in real time. The choices made in the next few months could shape the future of global economics for years to come. This isn't just a US-China issue. This trade war is reshaping global trade. Europe and Asia caught in the middle, forced to pick sides. Emerging markets struggling with higher costs and supply chain disruptions. The global economy facing slower growth, inflation, and uncertainty. And here's the scariest part: if diplomatic efforts fail, this economic war could escalate into something far worse. So now, we turn it over to you. Who do you think will come out on top? Will Trump's aggressive tariffs force China to back down? Or will China's strategic countermeasures hurt the US even more? Are we heading towards a global recession, or even worse? So, what do you think? Is Trump's strategy the right move? Or is this trade war only going to hurt American consumers and businesses? Will China's countermeasures cripple US industries? Or will both nations find a way to de-escalate before things spiral out of control? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We want to hear what you think. If you found this breakdown insightful, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe for more deep dives, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the latest updates. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.